Welcome in. There we go. We're pushing some buttons there. Welcome into the half. My name is Aaron Montgomery. This is Erich Campbell. Eric, we're here. We're ready. We're
We're
excited.
here.
It's the half, baby.
Hey, man, never a bad time for the half.
Never a bad time for the half. And Christine, hello again. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on this gorgeous Friday. I don't know if it's gorgeous where you're at, Eric. It's actually
New Mexico is
cold and
always
rainy.
pretty decent. It's cold, but
Yeah.
that's how it is. We're in the weird part of the season that New Mexico gives us, and I'm sure you being from Arizona, I'm sure you guys probably had it, especially in the upper elevations, the same kind of stuff,
Yeah.
where it's like the morning is freezing damned cold to the point that you're turning on some sort of heating device to survive, and then by 3 o'clock the house is horrific and it's hot again. If you're in the part of the house where the sun's hitting it, invariably it's actually too hot in the afternoon and you can't stand yourself, and the cooler's already taken down or shut down for the. If you don't have automatic stuff, like especially in dry climates, we have swamp coolers. You have to shut those down at a certain part of the year, and they do not come back on. So it's like evaporative cooling's not happening. You are not. So we're at the point where it's just like uncontrollably kind of uncomfortable 2 times a year. Hard to complain about that when I know people are digging out of their cars from snow already. That has happened for folks. Hard to complain. But yeah, we're in that weird part where you can't really wear the right clothes or ever be quite comfortable in that.
Yeah. And then you brought up swamp coolers. That brings back old memories growing up in Phoenix, and that's all we had was a swamp cooler. So I didn't know what a blanket was. Sheila was talking about blankets on Two Regular Guys today, and I didn't know what a blanket was when I was a kid. I had sheets, and that was
Arizona. Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely know what blankets are, but at the same time, it's everybody talks about dressing in layers. Imagine that in sometimes New Mexico, we do the blankets in layers because if you just have a heavy comforter on, well, that's too darn much, but it's not enough. About 2 a.m, you'll wake up and go, all right, I still have my summer blanket on. I better have the extra fall layered blanket set up. Yeah, no, it's goofy, but yeah, it's still lovely in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But no, it's we're in that weird part of the year for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, converted home office from a garage. It's not like it's the best insulation on earth. So yeah, definitely cold in the morning and hot in the afternoon.
I'm down in my basement here, our kind of half finished, half unfinished basement. So it's definitely cooler down here, but that's quite all right. It's still t-shirt weather, so I'm okay. All right. Go ahead, Eric.
It could be worse.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. All right. Let's check in with some other folks that are tuned in here. You want to take this one? Because
Josta is here from Sweden
on Two Regular Guys. So sorry, Josta.
It's all good, Josta.
And then
Jorita's
Jorita.
in. Happy to see you here, Jorita.
Hey, we know her. We just talked
Sheila,
to her.
by the way, great episode of the Two Regular Guys. If you didn't see before, Sheila Ryan of Designs by Baby Moon came on and talked all about, the creative process, embroidery, expanding your reach in business, pricing, and had some real great words to say about the abundance mentality and pricing in the right markets and realizing what you can charge. So great stuff from Sheila this morning. Go tune in with her and check that out. Like I said, I say that every Two Regular Guys, like almost everyone I stop and go, oh, go check that out. Trust me, it's a good one, especially for our crowd here.
We don't have them on if they're not going to be good. So
we really try
to say it for everyone, right? We try not to, at least. All right.
We try not to.
In 9 years, there probably have been some episodes that we could have cut. But
that's everybody in the comments who's a Two Regular Guys listener, don't start listing your your person from the 9 years.
The one where Aaron did it by himself, that should be cut. No.
Rough.
I don't know if I actually have ever done that. It may have been some. Anyhow,
we've had a couple.
Yeah, Christine said Sheila was fabulous today. I really enjoyed what she had to say.
It really was good. Yeah, thank you.
Definitely. Bevy Jean, good afternoon.
Good morning.
And Brian, awesome. We're excited to hang out with you, man. Looks like I'm hanging out with you guys today. I love it. Let's do it.
Awesome. Always got to see Brian, creative and brilliance, by the way. And we've been busy little bees. So cool to have a chance to have him in on the show.
Definitely. Good afternoon, Frank. Thanks for being here. And Lyndon, North Carolina. Good morning, guys, from North Carolina.
Yes,
was having dinner and some drinks with a buddy of mine last night, and he's talking about moving to North Carolina. He's like, you should move too. I'm like, I don't think that's happening, but okay.
Lori is in. Hello, Lori. Good morning.
And then good morning. Happy Friday, Wendy. Thanks for being here.
Always happy Friday. Education Friday, and also, the half Friday. It's time to go. Christine says all of my Two Regular Guys appearances have been gems, if I do say so myself. I will agree. I'll agree on your behalf.
We'll
I may have
agree.
read in a funny way, but yeah,
we'll go with that as well. I think that's safe to say. Yes.
So yeah, and everybody, by the way, you know, the Reggies are going on to your other guys, so it's time to vote for your favorites. So yeah, it's something that we talk about regularly is recognition, something that everybody needs. So if you guys say, oh, and here we go, he already had it. I was going to get the banner, tworeguys.com/Reggies. And the other thing I'm going to say real quick, since this is the half and we get to talk about things that are happening with us, I had a really lovely post over at the Embroidery Nerd. Jerry Lee posted and some other folks posted where they just it was very, very nice post about what I've done in the embroidery community and saying that there should be a Reggie's category for the most consistent producer of content. And they said all this really lovely stuff about me. And what I want to say is for all you guys, I hope that something I've done has helped you guys along the road. If it has, then that has been worth all of it. And frankly, if as we all climb, this is what I said at the end of that, as we're all climbing up this cliff that we're climbing in our work. By the way, I'm still climbing it with you. If I can give you a boost, I will. And if I have, then I'm happy for that. I've been lucky to be recognized within the Reggies many, many times. It's definitely time, especially as I'm behind the camera, behind the scenes, for you to recognize some other folks. Don't worry that there's not an Erich Campbell category on the Reggies. I've been on before. I want the one that always gets me is I won the inaugural Best Ambassador when we brought that in, and that one, like seriously, and I talk about it all the time. I've got awards that were from organizations and bigger stuff and magazines that everybody says is the thing you want to get, but the one that gets me is that one. Cool. So go vote for your favorite folks, and thank you for everybody in the Embroidery Nerd group who said all those kind words. I really appreciate it.
Nice, awesome. Great stuff, Eric. Thank you. And good morning to Marianne from MAS in Santa Fe.
Yeah. They are cooler than we are, so you're probably getting a little cold on Santa Fe. What I always call is New Mexico cold, because, I mean, unless you're in the high elevations, we don't. It's not that
Good morning, Ramona. Thanks for checking in with everybody. Appreciate you guys being here.
Ramona, also working on projects.
Yeah, definitely. What questions do you all have for us? What things are on your agenda today? What do you want to chat about? Again, like we talked about over at the Two Regular Guys at the end, if you didn't catch that, I was just talking about the half, saying, hey, we'll go wherever the whim takes us. So if you guys don't keep us under control, it gets a little crazy over here.
I'll say, I know one of the things we've been dealing with, and I don't know if you want to talk about this as well. I mean, this is a little off the track of decorating to a degree. It seems like a lot of the social media companies, a lot of the online advertisers and stores, everybody's doing massive changes to their advertising and to their marketing platforms lately. And it has been a little bit, let's say, fun in very obvious quotes, dealing with the massive changes to the interfaces and stuff like that that's going on right now. The interfaces and the algorithms have changed again, and it seems pretty drastic lately. So there's not much to say about it aside from saying I've been tuning into a lot of webinars and discussions from the Amazon side of this. I tuned into their Accelerate conference this week. And things are moving fast, folks. If you're not keeping up on this stuff, you may find that some of your tracking and marketing and stuff you do for online stores is changing underneath you. So if there's anything to say about it, it's not that you will be able to control it or necessarily be able to move the needles the way you used to. But by all means, take an interest in what's going on in your back end of your website and what's going on with your marketing and advertising. Don't just let those budgets run forever if they're not doing something for you. Trust me.
Yeah. I think this is a good point to kind of remember, maybe just across the board, Eric, is that, we kind of get, I don't know, we take for granted a little bit some of this stuff, right? That, but here's the reality. Anything that is not your specific website where you have all of the code yourself, right? Everything else is technically rented.
Yeah.
Right? So your lot on Amazon is a rented space. If they decide they're going to change what's happening to the land underneath it, they're going to do that. Same thing with Facebook. Sheila talked a lot about Etsy and said that there were some challenges there. And she was very nice about it because she still likes Etsy. But I know a lot of people that really hate Etsy because of the things that they've done and the changes they've made. There was a big conversation over in the OSG Business Basics group recently about some changes that PayPal's making.
Yeah.
And comments with people saying, "Oh, they're going to keep my money," and I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to. It was more to talk about what can be done about it, and so I didn't want to get into the whole logistics of it. But that whole mindset of they're keeping my money. Well, actually, when somebody pays you through PayPal, they're actually paying PayPal, and you just happen to have a contract with PayPal that PayPal will then pass the money along to you. And when they decide to change their contract with you, then that is their prerogative. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to continue to use PayPal. So it'd be fine to say, yep, I'm not using PayPal. A lot of people jumped in and said, that's why I don't use PayPal, or that's why I'm not going to use PayPal. I'm going to go to Square or Stripe but again, you're not, unless a customer physically hands you cash money, you've got some sort of contract or middle person there that you have to understand what the rules and regulations are. So
no, it's true. And the unfortunate truth is that they can do things that affect your success, and it is their prerogative. Now, here's always the trade-off. This is kind of where I bring this to. We're talking about Amazon. Amazon brings you to a marketplace that you would not necessarily have had access to otherwise. You have to look at it and say, is the cost of doing business there worth the access to their marketplace and their essentially their captive audience? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. It's a choice you have to make. And I think the same thing as PayPal. I'm like, all right, well, most of us choose PayPal out of convenience. Is the convenience worth the price they're paying and the changes they're making to the contract? That's always what it is. And honestly, it's just like we talked about this with materials, and I'm not going to slog on this today. I'm going to talk about metallic threads as well as some other threads and maybe some stitch foils and some other things like that on my show Take Up this afternoon. And this is not slogging everybody off for not wanting to pay a lot for materials. However, when we're looking at, say, metallic thread, I was discussing this with Matt from the Embroidery Nerd. I said, he's like, well, what's that metallic thread that's supposed to run faster? I'm like, oh, it's Madeira CR. It's coated. It's done differently, so it runs through the machine a little faster. Doesn't snag as much. Okay. And he's like, man, those are expensive cones of thread. And what I'm thinking is, I'm like, and I said, yeah, no, it is. Here are some other options. Here's where there are. I can say from my testing that the other options for the thread didn't run quite as good as the CR. And what I didn't say, and I didn't think about saying until later, I was like, yeah, well, it depends on your thread break per hour ratio. Like, how many thread breaks, snags, and troubles do you want? And is it worth it to you? Now, certainly some other people came up with some really cool, solutions to that, like buying a cone and breaking it down for a multi-head machine. You can break cones down and spin them off onto smaller cones if you have a cone breaker. There's all these other things. So I'm not just saying, hey, tough it up and change your prices. However, it's not that I'm saying that's the only way to do it. You can run the other thread. And in fact, like I said, Glisten is one of them. There's other coated threads that are similar to it. They're cheaper. I personally had worse results, but it depends. Like I said, there's other things that can go into that, which I'll talk about on my show. But the thing is always this, like, how much is it affecting my throughput? I'll be honest and say, if I'm not going to gain more throughput, then what does it matter? Run the other material, run it slower. And also you may find, because the look of like the CR metallic is a little duller than the other metallic, maybe they like the other one better. The customer likes the shinier one that runs a little worse. If you're charging right, okay, then run the other one, run it slower and modify your execution. That's not a problem. But it is about saying, okay, what is the convenience saving me? Is it saving me time that's production time I can use to make more money somewhere else? Is it saving me headaches that make it easier for me to do something else? Is it an opportunity thing? And the same thing with PayPal. It is running PayPal making everything else easier? Is there something that's useful about it? Are they offering a payment system, and so I don't have to worry about financing if I have something expensive? Is there, what is the benefit? And if the benefit's not really there, then what's the cost going to be for you? I mean, it really
exactly.
I personally, I've run PayPal and do on like my own personal little design site. Really, why? Because I don't sell very much and I'm not working on that as a primary business, and I don't care to run a merchant account. For real businesses, no. I wasn't running PayPal as an option necessarily. It's not my first choice for sure.
Sure. But, if your customers are saying, hey, I want to pay with PayPal because it's more convenient for them. And guess what? You're going to have to deal with a little bit of that every once in a while, right? But
then, like Etsy and everybody else, we've had trouble with Etsy. Etsy is rife with copyright theft and pirating. I'm sorry, but they are. They are full of pirates and copyright thieves. It is not a question. They're there. And if you're on the Etsy platform, you're going to be dealing with that. You're swimming in those waters. It is just the truth. And even if you're not on Etsy, people are doing it with your stuff. Like, it is hard to argue it's not there. But there are reasons why Etsy can offer stuff for you. So it is, it really is about the cost benefit. And I mean, we've got a lot of great comments here we might want to get to.
Yeah, let's give me 1 second before we get to those.
Sure.
Because I just want to, because here's what I'm seeing a lot, right? So I'm fortunate enough to get to work with a lot of small businesses, and because I get to be the outside party looking in. Right. I get to see it from a different perspective. And what I'm noticing a lot is these challenges will come up and they'll show up in front of us, the PayPal situation or Etsy situation, whatever that latest challenge is. And because the business owner is so ingrained in their business, which is the way it should be, right? It's our baby. We're working hard at it. We love it and we have a passion for it. What happens is they don't take that moment to back up, right? It's like you and I talked about this last Saturday on Small Business Saturday. The event happens, and if we don't take that moment to just kind of go, okay, this sucks, screw you, PayPal, that kind of thing.
Sure.
That's fine. But what you also then have to do is go, am I, cutting off my nose to spite my face kind of thing, right? Where do I need to step back, look at it from a higher vision of things and go, what's the reality? What you talked about, what's the cost benefit of this? You mentioned the guy that you were talking with the gentleman about the thread and how it was expensive. But if you're just looking at that cost of thread and you're laser focused in onto what that cost is, you're missing the fact that, like you said, does that potentially change how much faster you can run your machine? Business owners think that, I've got more time than I've got money. Well, guess what? You actually have less of both. So time is money, and realize that, there was an example of somebody that was having a challenge with refillable cartridges they bought and they were but this went on for a couple of days on this forum that I was on. This whole conversation back and forth about trying to get these refillable cartridges to work for, like I said, for a couple of days. So this person must have spent several hours doing it, where if they just would have gone and bought the actual cartridges, it was $40. I'm like, there's been way more than $40 worth of time wasted here. So anyhow, I'm going.
And like I said, I'm not. But I do want to preface this, since I mentioned Matt and me talking about threads. He's not like a benighted soul who isn't just not getting the point.
Yeah, sure.
He absolutely is checking the cost benefit analysis. He was just like surprised by the cost, and I agree. The cost is high. The cost per cone is way definitely high on CR. No lie. There's so let's put it this way: if you had already priced a job out for standard metallics and then suddenly had to go back to the job and you're trying to spec it for CR and you had your bid sold, that's a shock, and that sucks. So no lie, I'm not just
faster. Could you make it up in time?
That's the question you have to ask. It's more about the question you're asking. I'm not like saying this specific use case. But
All right. Well, so just real quick before because we got some great comments.
Let's do that, please.
But this is also a great comment. Christine asks, "Is it possible to keep you guys under control?"
Barely.
I would say yes. I would say that is like herding cats. I think would probably be a good analogy.
Very good analogy.
Ramona says, whatever PayPal type service you use, you need to remember that even when a customer pays you by other means, the receiver of the means has the right to hold the payment till they receive the funds. They give you their money on the promise that the payer will honor the payment made. So
true enough.
Good point there. And then Brian says, as someone who's actually experienced with PayPal and hackers stealing money, I will not recommend any business to work with PayPal. Consumer protection exists, especially if the consumer uses a credit card to back their PayPal account. But merchants are not protected, and PayPal has a very bad attitude. Don't feel bad if you've had to make a hard choice.
Yep. I would have to agree with you there. And I'd say that is the hardest part right now about the market. As the online e-commerce market became mature, a lot of the larger kind of warehouses, like I said, Amazon's one of them. Sellers are a dime a dozen. The marketplace is what's important. The customer is always right, to a fault, in a way you wouldn't do in a brick and mortar business. And honestly, they can buy and sell you so many times over, they don't care.
Yeah,
Mostly
exactly.
they don't care unless you're performing very well in a particular segment that they don't have coverage for.
Correct.
And that is the thing. They don't need you, you need them. But that also means, hey, when it comes down to making the hard decision, don't worry about them.
Yeah, PayPal is
Don't
going to
worry
be
about
fine.
PayPal.
Amazon's going to be fine. Yes,
No.
and yeah, we do need to take it back. And the
Yeah.
thing that happens here is at a certain point, that kind of bad attitude and crappy service will lead to somebody
Yeah.
going, "I've had enough. I'm going to come up with an alternative that is better suited," and it
For
will
sure.
drive that change. But in the meantime, you have to know what your options are. You have to deal with what the challenges of some of those options are, and then make the best decisions based on what your core values are and what you're doing for your customers, right? So
absolutely. Well, it's
it
like
is
you can achieve a lot with PayPal. It's not like PayPal isn't a bad tool. Also, if you started on PayPal, great. Hey, even let it keep running while you find your next solution. Fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to just destroy your business trying to fix this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a good time to review this once in a while. I mean, especially when big changes like this happen.
Totally. I agree 100%. Christine says the cost benefit question comes up so often for everyone who runs a business. I run into people who say they can't afford to do something and they just haven't done the math to see that investment will pay off tenfold. Right. Absolutely.
100%, yeah.
And I kind of look at that like this, Eric, in that, if someone were to come to you and say, and guarantee, and you have a contract that you feel good about, and it's not some scammer or something like that. That this is somebody. So taking out all of the what ifs, and this is guaranteed that you could have $100,000, but you've got to come up with a number that's bigger than a number that you would normally spend. Let's say that's $20,000 to invest. I think if you knew that it was guaranteed and had that, you would probably figure out a way. And so looking at some of these things like that is like, okay, and now you're not going to have a guarantee, but you're now betting on yourself, right? And so you're the only one that is responsible for making that outcome happen. If you make that investment. So it does give you that, I have control over this. So yeah, if it makes sense, make the investment. Most people have, I don't know, I've heard it called lots of things, the poverty mentality, that kind of thing, where it's all about the cost, right? It's everything is about the cost, the actual hard cost. But if you change your mentality to look at everything as an investment, whether that's, it could be just like going out and buying a $5 Starbucks cup of coffee. If you look at that from an investment mentality, some people might go, oh yeah, I could take that $5 and do something better with it. Or some people go, yeah, the enjoyment of this coffee is worth that investment in, wherever you fall on that scale. But that's what the cost benefit question is to me. It's that investment mindset.
Well, and I'll say this, there are some times where sometimes we can be dragging our feet because we are personally afraid of something or not ready to make the jump. But look at the things you're dragging your feet on, because sometimes what it actually is that you already know that this thing isn't good. I mean, there are some times where it is that gut feeling isn't good. I'm not saying go into the poverty mentality of constantly saying we don't spend any money. What I am saying is if there is something that just you cannot get over the hump, stop and coolly take a look at it again and say, but analysis, you have to do some little self-analysis. I know it sounds pretty fluffy, but you have to think, why is this bothering me so much? Is this about some sort of personal thing, some emotional thing that I'm reacting to? Or do I really know that this is not the best time for this, especially if you find that it's distracting you from something else you should be doing? So it's just like I said, it's more about, for me, when big changes happen like this, it's a good time to pause and do a brief bit of reflection and be mindful of what's going on and say, all right, I'm complaining about PayPal, but am I complaining about it for the right reasons? And here's the other thing too. People will say, I can't move from PayPal. My whole site's built on PayPal. And it's a sunk cost thing where I'm like, so do you think that there's no other options for you to rebuild? Maybe, or they're holding on to an old piece of technology. This is often what I find, where somebody's just like, they're spending, good money after bad. Yes, you're not spending as much, but you get to this point where you're like, all right, it's time to invest in something that's not breaking down all the time, that is current and modern and will offer you other opportunities. Because you might find that your website that's built only for PayPal isn't really going to help you grow anyway. And it's time to rebuild that thing on a platform that'll let you use modern services or different services that you need to use. And that the overall gain is even more than just getting a better payment system. It might be that now I have a supported software platform that I can make a different kind of business model happen for myself, or make it easier for my customers to buy. I mean,
could that be like
there's a lot there.
Yeah. Could that be like, I'm going out to all the used computer places and buying all the Windows XP computers I can because my software only runs on XP? Is that heard anything like that?
Can't tell you, especially in the embroidery world. Now, I will admit, a lot of the embroidery, I always call it like the big iron. The big machines sometimes can run forever on those floppy disks, and they're fine. But there are options in between. There are options in between, and especially if it's something where it's messing with your production. If you're breaking thread, your stuff runs like crap. The machine's down every 2 seconds. You can't find parts, and so you're spending a month every 6 months, or 2 weeks every 6 months, completely down while you're looking for parts or having them machined. You need to look at that and go, okay, is it really time for me to retire that piece of equipment? And I'll be honest and say sometimes it's not. We had some incredibly old equipment that we only put into service sometimes at our shops, and they were very useful at the time, but we didn't make that our primary machines. And we had primary machines that ran reliably.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's when it gets in the way of reliable service, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So, all right.
Brian's got a good point here, by the way.
Yeah, he does have a good point. I kept prematurely putting it up there. Sorry. Brian says merchant services, normal credit card acceptance is super easy to accomplish these days compared to previous years.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've got that. Marianne says, I'm old school, still take checks if I know the client. And go ahead, Eric. I've got some thoughts on that too.
Oh, feel free. I mean, I just would say, yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with old school mentality on that too.
No,
or cash in hand. Nobody hates cash in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, again, the customer, and that's your way of doing business. But when you run into that situation where like, hey, I need to grow my business and it's not growing, you have to look at some of those things, right? I ran across a study that I found to be pretty interesting and also pretty accurate, is that 44% of millennials prefer to have a contactless purchasing option, right? They do not want to pick up the phone. They do not want to walk into your store. They do. And that's, it's like, oh, well, that's just those crazy kids. Well, guess what? Millennials are aged 29 to 40 is the millennial range right now. So who has disposable income or who's coming into disposable income right now? Guess what? Millennials. So
the young workforce is already Gen Z.
Yeah. Exactly.
The early, like the young entering the workforce people are Gen Z right now, not millennials.
Yeah.
So it's worth understanding.
We're getting pushed out.
I'm in that exedial, that weird place where it's like I used a card catalog, but I had the internet for high school. I'm in a really weird, like 5-year swap where I'm in between. I tend to think a little more like a millennial than a Gen Xer, I suppose, because I'm bad about picking up the phone too. But yeah, honestly, I'm looking at that stuff and say, hey, it is just one of those things. It's not, like I said, it's not that you have to upgrade. It's when the upgrades get in the way.
Yeah.
When the things that you're not upgrading are getting in the way. I mean, certainly, like Marianne puts this thing up here. I understand. She's a floppy girl here. My machine works good. No problems. I'll say that's cool. It's good for you. I'm glad. I'm going to say our machines were breaking down on our floppies. I had to convert them to USB and then add networking and do all this stuff. And there was a whole period of time where we were constantly hunting for replacement floppy drives. And it turned out to be like a waste of time. Now, I did retrofit them, and it's not the machines didn't go away. But there became a time where the cost benefit analysis was, do I really want this thing breaking down again in the middle of a production run? And I can't feed a design to it, even though it's operating.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, we got to do something different. So it's all about that. And I also love this too. Yeah. Yosta comes up and says, oh, so you say tapes are not the future for embroidery? No, paper tapes are right out. Paper tapes are right out, my man.
If there was a, zombie apocalypse and that was all we could do, right? Or,
would be great. The truth of the matter is paper tapes would be the only digital embroidery that would survive. And what you would do with that, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm going to say needle and thread.
Yeah. That's why Terry always has to have his yellow legal pad just in case there's a zombie apocalypse. All of my data on the internet is going to be gone.
So when we need to rebuild screen printing, we'll have Terry's little yellow books.
He'll have his yellow legal pads.
Critical
world will be saved.
When we need T-shirts after the apocalypse, it'll be great.
And then Ramona says the zombie apocalypse is why my husband still has CB radios. So there you go.
Hey, they did a great deal. I remember during some, God, I don't know if it was Katrina or what. I remember there was like an army of CB aficionados who were like, it's my time. And we're setting up telephone interchanges when everything was down there. So I know, hey, CB radio dudes, like you can make fun of that, but they actually come in handy quite a bit. They end up
there you go.
restoring communications. That's crazy.
So, Eric, did you hear there was the new report out about the actual potential of what was it? Well, basically it was the zombie apocalypse. Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about that, but what I will say is there's a lot of official documentation that's really kind of crazy. If you look at the operating procedures that a lot of, like, NASA hasn't.
Hope we're not trying too hard, Eric. That was fun.
I actually had a fun fact.
Share the fun fact. We'll see who's still around.
Okay, there are procedures and I don't know if it's funny or not, but, like, I believe it's NASA. There's a couple other companies who have zombie apocalypse procedures in their books, and it's hilarious. You got to look that stuff up. They have them in their official operating manuals. So yeah,
fun fact.
There's my fun fact, folks.
Have a great day, everybody.